एक मिनट रुक जाओ, रेडी होने दो. चलो ये कर लेते हैं. दिस कुड बी अ ग्रेट इंट्रो.
Hi, I'm Akshay.
Hi, this is Saurabh, and you are listening to the Founder Thesis podcast. We meet some of the most celebrated startup founders in the country.
And we want to learn how to build a unicorn.
My name is Anand. I am the founder of CleverTap.
If someone was to make a Slumdog Millionaire type of a movie about a startup founder, then they couldn't get a better inspiration for their story than the journey of Anand Jain, founder of CleverTap. Anand's incredible story starts from him living in a small apartment in Ahmedabad with a single mother, where he did everything possible to earn money from repairing electronics to selling detergent door to door. Anand was never academically inclined and doesn't hold an engineering degree, which makes his journey of becoming a tech entrepreneur even more inspiring. Listen to this conversation between Akshay Dutt and Anand Jain to get back your belief in the magic of dreaming big and achieving the impossible through sheer determination.
I was born in Lucknow. My grandparents were originally from Pakistan. Right after partition, they grabbed hold of their kids and whatever they could kind of hold it in two hands and kind of ran across the border.
So
And
they were like Punjabis.
we are Punjabi Jains. A combination you don't see too much, but
Very rare, yeah.
we are one of the rare species. But they were given a space in Lucknow to settle. So all the migrants were given settlement camps. We got ours in Lucknow. I was born in Lucknow, and right after I was born, my dad got transferred. I was 3 months old to Ahmedabad. He was working for a private company, and he got transferred. And I grew up in Ahmedabad, so I've lived in Ahmedabad all my life until I kind of left for the US.
What was he doing? Like, how did he restart his life in India?
Yeah, so dad was very young when the partition happened, but my grandfather had to restart his life. My grandfather was a literate man. He could speak and write in 3 4 languages. He got a job with the railways, but that was not enough to make the ends meet, right? So he would kind of set up one of those stalls outside, like a roadside, selling clothes, selling cloth material and all that. Um and it was just so that his kids could study and all that. So it was like and we were a very rich family back in the Pakistan side of things, right? My grandmother, I mean, God bless her, she's around. She tells stories of how we used to have our own horse stable, and she used to go around riding, and we had a big haveli of sorts. So yeah, from there, my grandfather kind of went to Lucknow and had to rebuild his life.
So, what kind of aspirations did you grow up with?
Yeah, I wanted to be. I grew up amongst a lot of business community, Gujarat. I mean, my friends were Marwadis, Hindis, some Punjabi families that my were family friends, and I saw them very well off, right? Uh, and we were well off also until Dad was around. Dad passed away. I'll come to that, but my aspirations to grow up was I was not very good at studies, and I thought that this is just a passing phase. I will get better as time goes by. Absolutely no idea how that would happen, but at least that's what I was thinking. I wanted to be very well off in terms of money, and kind of work 9 to 5. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur growing up, right? Um, but yeah, that's what I wanted to do an MBA, and don't ask me why MBA, because uh, I the MBAs that I knew were all cool people, and they were kind of they used to go to offices in
Earning good salaries.
yeah, wearing ties and like well dressed, black shoes, black dress up shoes. So I thought that they've arrived, right? So maybe an MBA would get you there.
So, what happened then? Like, did you actually go on to achieve that dream?
No, life happened. What happened was that I was very bad at studies, and when I say bad, I'm not being humble here. I'm actually being very, very truthful, right? Imagine single-digit marks in subjects like mathematics or science, or even languages, right? It's not that I had love for language or English or whatever, right? I mean, I used to suck equally across the spectrum. The only subject I actually loved was physics. Uh, and it was because I still am, but a tinkerer from an early age. I used to buy a lot of the DIY stuff, electrical stuff, and repair electric irons and antennas and those kind of things, right, for the neighbors. So whenever their geyser blew a fuse, like, and they would call me, or whenever something stopped working in their household, a bulb had to be replaced. Now that's not some big stuff, but they would call me, and I would be the one who tried to kind of put the filament together, like, in the broken bulb and all that. So I mean, of course, that is not physics. That's more electrical stuff. But I somehow loved physics and everything, but that alone is not enough to get you into the science stream. And growing up,
Why were your marks so low? Was it that you didn't care, or was it that you were struggling, or
yeah, I
what?
was struggling, man. I mean, I had my grandfather. So I'll give you a little. When I was 12 years old, we lost our dad, right? So my and my grandfather was very good. Like, he would come spend some time, because we were the only, so of the family that we have, like the extended family, we have people in Punjab, we have people in Delhi, and then we have people in Lucknow, right? We had no one in Gujarat or Ahmedabad, right? Absolutely no family connections or any of that stuff.
So why didn't you go back? Like once your dad passed away?
Yeah, that,
I
that
mean,
was and I'm
was
very,
your mom working there, or?
yeah, my mom was not working. She was a homemaker. And my dad was very, very protective of the family. uh, and yeah, maybe it's not appropriate for the times, but I think he thought that the females of the house should not venture out and all those things, right? And growing up, we led a very protected life. uh, we we used to live in a, and please, this is a good contrast, right? We used to live in a rented apartment, a one bedroom rented apartment, not a great neighborhood of Ahmedabad, but we used to have a car and a driver, right? So talking about like living life king size, right? Like that's what dad used to kind of be a little bold. uh, right, he liked all the good things, finer tastes of life and all that. After he passed away, we were in dire straits, right? We did not even know where the bank was, where we had the money, and we did not know how much money we had in the bank, right? uh, so uh, the first time when mom stepped out of the house, like, on her own, it was me and mom. So a 12-year-old and mom, and then we were kind of, we asked the panwala, like, hey, yeah, Union Bank is somewhere in this neighborhood, like, where is it? And then we could figure out the way to the bank. We introduced ourselves, we told them what happened. uh, and then so my dad passed away on the 28th of the month. uh, and we realized that he had, I think, 59 rupees or something like that in the bank account. Like that was the only amount left with us, right? He used to work for a private company, so you can, it was not that, that they would put me in the job, not that I was eligible for it, but mom gets a job. The government has these kind of things, right? Like, right, so we were of course not eligible for that. uh, and that's a big shock, right? So as if the shock of losing someone dear is not big enough, you also have a shock of, okay, well, it's the 28th of the month and we don't have too much money in the bank. It will be the first of the month very soon, and we are living in a rented apartment. We have to pay the rent, and we need to kind of make the ends meet. uh, Now you asked, why did you not go back to Lucknow, right? Like, I think, and I'm extremely inspired by my mom. She actually took the very hard decision. So after dad passed away, like, we spent a few months, like 3 or 4 months, in Lucknow. uh, and then uh, uh, and then everyone told her that, that we will, that Anand ko, we'll send him in a shop. We have clothes shops, and some of my uncles were doing some other things, right? And they said, we'll take care of your kid, don't worry about it. But I think she did not want to go back. She wanted to kind of come back to Ahmedabad and figure out life. uh, and that's what she did, right? So she came back, and she I mean, all most of Punjabi ladies, like, from the years gone by, like, know how to stitch, embroider, those kind of things, right? That's like a skill that's been taught, right? As a community, you learn that. So mom knew that, and she started kind of stitching things, fixing, hemming, those kind of things, for the neighborhood, right? I mean, for the building neighbors, right? So we used to live in an apartment complex which had four kind of different building blocks, so A, B, C, D, and 10-story building, about 5 or 6 houses on each on floor. So there's a lot of people,
Hmm,
right? About
hmm,
1,000 people, give or take.
hmm,
uh,
hmm, hmm, hmm.
and when she started the home business, a lot of people, just out of sympathy, came to support her, right? Someone needed their trousers to be kind of refitted, or someone tore their shirt and they wanted it to be stitched or whatever, right? So I think we started earning a little bit from that. Of course, it's nowhere near to making the ends meet. And while she had me 10-year-old, and she had a 2-year-old, my sister was 2 years old when that happened. So it was kind of devastating for us. But I asked her a few years later, right, when I was a little bit more sensible, like, hey mom, why did you not go back to Lucknow? And I think she said that, we would have always lived a life with our arms or our palms stretched out, right, always asking for help. And in life, I've never I never want to do that. I want to be I want to be independent. I want to be I want to make whatever it is, like, if there is less, we'll make do with less, right? But I don't want to stretch out my palms. And I think that was such an incredible thing for a homemaker who's not been exposed to the world. That was just phenomenal.
So you were also like under pressure to get some money into the house?
I no, I mean, all I can remember from the days was mom telling me that, why don't you apply yourself to your studies, right? You have to study. There is nothing else that you should do. Um, and but poor me, like, I was so bad. I was incredibly bad at studies. And the mind of a 12, 13, 14-year old, right, especially when you're super creative, and that's gone, and you think like, okay, well, I can now do whatever that prohibited me to do, right? I can stay up the night. I can repair things, right? Like, of course, dad did not like me going around, like, repairing someone's iron or replacing the element of an iron, right? And those things, right? So I could finally do that. Of course, you have no career consequences of that, right? That, it's not like that electronics was my passion or electrical stuff was my passion, etc., right? It was just like, hey, if I replace the iron for some, fix something for someone, I'd get 20 rupees of that, right? uh, and mom, she would stitch, like, in Indian saris there is a fall, sari and fall. So you stitch the fall, right, to a sari, and that, for the fall that you stitch, takes you about half an hour. You get 2 rupees for that. uh, so that was some of the other stuff that mom used to do, right? And so we strapped along, right? We didn't have a plan, we didn't have a method to the madness. It was more about, like, okay, well, take every day on the face value, and try to just not, try to kind of end the day with the meal in our stomachs, right? Like, just I was extremely bad, like, I mean, I wish I had a reason. I wish I could tell you why I was bad. It was just that I was very mischievous in school. And maybe because, we were away for 4 months, right? Some of the foundational stuff that you're learning as a 12, 13-year old, right, that gets you miss those things, right? uh, and I could never kind of recover from that, right? uh, it was always it was always fun and games for me, even when I came back, right? Again, it was not that I was spending time with friends. I was quite a loner actually growing up, right? I was an introvert. I did not have any friends. I mean, people knew us in our apartment society. Like, people knew us, right? Like, okay, this is Anand, right? But we were not social enough. Mom was social, not I was not, right? Um, so it was just me, and a variety of random things I used to do, right? So I would, as I said, right, I would get DIY kits from. So there was a flea market in Ahmedabad that every
Chor
Sunday.
Bazaar.
Chor Bazaar, exactly. It's called Ravivari. It on a Sunday, like, under the Ellis Bridge, which is Queen Elizabeth's Bridge, whatever, right? Like, so under that bridge there is and I used to go spend hours there, like, go at like 9:30 in the morning, and just like look around. Of course, I could not afford anything, right? But I would ask the price, like, try to kind of see if someone can give me something for free, whatever, right? Wires and sockets and plugs and those kind of things, right? Try to make some DIY equipment out of that. Uh, so a tinkerer, I would say. Now that you now after so many years, if you can ask me, Anand, what were you growing up, right? Very, very creative. uh, Definitely not the studious kind, definitely not the ones that goes life with a checklist and says, okay, well, 3 p.m. I'm going to work on X, 5 p.m. I'm going to do something else, not that kind at all. uh, but something very interesting happened, right? Once you have passion for something, right, you actually get immersed in those things, right? And I immersed myself in the electrical stuff, uh, and very soon graduated to the electronics stuff also, right? So I would go again from the flea market. They sell gramophone records, they sell everything, right, under the sun, right? So there were a lot of electronic books also. that I could lay my hands on. I started reading up on electronics, what are resistors, capacitors, condensers, diodes, all those things, right? And I would have I would kind of create DIY small, projects, right? Like a electrical bell that would ring, right? That would chirp. So that means I knew what a soldering iron was. I knew what a timer chip was. I could put it all
And this
together.
this would like be BTech level project.
Possibly, I had no idea, right? Like, I mean, I mean, I sound like a dumb guy, which probably I was, right? Growing up, I had no idea that science is a stream, commerce is a different stream. It'll take you to different places in life, right? It shapes, it'll give you different kinds of opportunities. I And in my apartment building, there were some extremely sharp people, like, a generation older to me, about 8 to 10 years elder to me. And they were preparing for, you're right, like, they were preparing for their BE exams, and after that they would go on to do advanced studies in the US. A lot of them have now settled in the US, right? So if I had any brains, it would have been very easy for me to go ask them, like, hey, say Rakesh bhaiya or Bharat bhaiya, like, tell me how, would you, how would, what's the part to get to the US, right? What kind of studies, like, but I was just, the teachers were kind of fed up of me. uh, I did not, and I was having a ball, like, I was having a ball repairing electrical stuff, repairing electronic stuff. Those were the days of the VCRs, cordless phones, uh, televisions, like, with the fat kind of backside, right? Like the CRT televisions. I would have a ball repair. I mean, I would like be so, my bedroom, which was like the one bedroom, right? Mom and I shared, right? I mean, under the bed we did not have any storage, right? Was and I would, that would be my workshop, right? I would pull out stuff.
Okay.
I had opened up, by the time I was, I would say, 15 or 16. I had opened up every single gadget in the house, including fans, tube lights, everything electronic that we had, including our television, right? I had opened it up. I was curious to look at the parts, like, I had a multimeter. I would do random shit with it, right? Uh, and that was again a dreamy 12, 15-year old, right? 12 to 15 years of my life, right? I did not have a plan. It was not that, I'm inspired that I will go want to become an engineer. uh, I had absolutely no idea what an engineer was. A lot of my family back in Lucknow are all, businessmen. They've, I mean, a couple of my uncles. So my dad, has three brothers. So one plus three, like four brothers in total. Um, the So dad was educated. The one, younger to dad, went to IIT Madras. So again, like, the best. uh, and I think this was back in the 70s or even before that, right? The other two were like, just, they, I don't think so they graduated or even passed the 12th grade, right? They were just put on the shop, because grandfather is to then, from his setting up the stall outside of the market, he then eventually made his way into the market, right? And while he had a day job of the, of with the railways, uh, because that was steady income, right? uh, Without the week, and you don't have capital to invest, you need a shop, you need capital, right? You need to buy things and then you can sell them. So he put one of my uncles on the shop, and one, then that uncle kind of got the other one to help him out as business grew. So I had no one to guide me, to be honest, like, and of course, not that I was seeking guidance, right? It was just very random in the early stage of my life.
But when did you like get a plan, or like when did you get serious that you need to make a living, so to say, like?
I never did. Again, let, let me, so okay. So let's go back, right? So I was doing electrical stuff. Then we were doing electronic stuff. Then, I got enrolled in. So okay, around that time, I think I was in the ninth grade. A friend of mine kind of told me, "Hey." So I used to live in one part of Ahmedabad, and at the extreme opposite end of Ahmedabad, about, if you had to take a bicycle and go, it would be about 15 kilometers, right? There was Vikram Sarabhai Labs, of course, named after the very famous scientist, right? Vikram Sarabhai. So in Vikram Sarabhai Labs, you can get access to a computer, right? So they would invite kids to come on a Sunday, spend half an hour just playing some games, right? Like, computers was very, very new for the world and even for India, right? More so for people in Ahmedabad, right? They had no idea, right, what a computer was. Uh, and we used to bicycle around, and I think one of those incidents where I where I entered the edit mode of the game, right? So you press F2, and I was just a tinkerer, right? So I just was screwing around, right? You enter the edit mode, you change some number. There was 20, I probably made it 25, and then I increased the odds of winning, right? So I won that game, and that kind of set off a light bulb in my head, like, hey, I can change this, right? For everything else, I required a soldering iron, I required some sort of a quiet setting in my place, and all that, right? And I had no idea that this was called software or programming back then, right? But it was like, okay, if I change something here and I go back into the playing mode, I can change things. So fast forward, a couple years later, when I was I think in the 12th grade, I between 12th and first year of college, right? Again, so let me go back, actually, because I told you, right, there are multiple kind of storylines in my story, right? So apart from repairing electrical stuff and kind of repairing or building these small DIY kits, right? DIY projects, right? Like some remote control bell or infrared something, right? uh, with a photovoltaic thing, cell, or infrared cell, you do these things, right? uh, so that was one part of my personality. The second part of my personality was helping out mom with all the stitching work she would do, right? So we would I like, for a sari you probably require a blouse and a petticoat, like, matching. So I would take my bicycle, uh, go to the wholesale market, try to find some matching stuff, get it back, right? uh, my uncles in Lucknow started sending us Lucknowi suits and dresses. So that would be sent, since we were not a commercial entity, like, they would, and of course mom was running a home business, right? So they would send it through railways, like, like you load it up in the cargo section of the railways. But it was for my dear nephew or niece, they would write those kind of things, right? And of course the railways knew that, such a package, like, so I would be the one, because mom had to kind of take care of the home. I would be the one, on a bicycle, I'd go all the way to the railway, kind of where they were, what are those guys called, the octroi guys. And they would say, hey, what is this? Like, I said, my uncle sent me a gift. Kehta, how come your uncle send you a gift every month? And because the commercial value would be some, like a random amount, right? Would be like, oh, 1,000 rupees, right? And of course it had stuff worth of 25,000 rupees, right? uh, Bought from because we were running a cloth business in Lucknow. My uncle knew other, other folks, right? And they would procure stuff wholesale to us. Lucknowi dresses, there were no other kind of sellers of Lucknowi dresses. It was very exotic, right? And again, please go back in time, right? I'm talking about the mid 90s, early 90s. Uh, and everyone knew that we were from Lucknow, right? Because we were the odd ones out, right? We could not speak any Gujarati to save our lives, and we were just like some Punjabi family, right? Dad passed away, so and then they were like, oh wow, like, you got Lucknowi stuff. So people would come and buy Lucknowi dresses from mom. So I had to negotiate, with the octroi guy. I have to find, with the, kind of say, okay, well, we are poor, or whatever, man. I had to make up some random things, right? Somehow slip a 100 rupee note, and get hold of that, parcel, and then bring it back. So that was one side of my personality, right? That's one thing I did. The third thing I did was, find out odd jobs to do. So
Like repairing jobs, or
no,
like,
not repairing. I mean, completely different, absolutely different. There's no bearing on the first two that I described, right? Uh, so a friend, I mean, one day, not even a friend, like an acquaintance, told me that his friend, right, um, uh, got a job in Nirma factory, right, to clean up the factory premises. And was like, okay, and what does he do? He's like, you know what, by the time the production shift ends in the evening, there's a lot of dust in the factory, right? So this guy's got a cleaning job, right? He kind of wipes the factory clean, machines, everything is wiped clean. And in my head, I said, you know what, hang on, man, what kind of dust would be there in a chemical factory? Because it will ruin your detergent, right? Or whatever chemical you're producing, right? Let's say you're producing talcum powder or detergent powder or whatever you're producing, right? Cream, shampoo, right? You possibly cannot have dust. Everything that's flying in the air is actually the Nirma washing powder, right? Because as you're filling them in containers or vats, or filling them in the plastic pouches, that thing will be the only thing in the air. And they're actually paying this guy to sweep the factory clean. So I, got hold of that acquaintance's friend, and I said, why don't you, sell? I mean, I'll buy whatever. I mean, don't dispose it off. Since give it to me, right? And he says, what will you do with it? And I figured out a side business, like, I said, I'll package it, in a plastic pouch,
Yeah.
like, kind of seal it with a with a candle, back in the days, like, and I will sell it door to door. So I used to go knock on doors, talk to the housewives, show them the washing powder, the unbranded that I was a kid, like, I probably 15, right? And then they would be like,
But you were such a hustler. Huh? This is like
I was, yes,
unbelievable.
yes, yes. And I've said this before, that if you don't have a clear line, right? Like an engineer, there are families of doctors, right? That the kids become doctors, and they have dreams. The family has a dream, right? Oh, we have a hospital, and the kid, when they become or the family of lawyers or a family of engineers, and industrialists and all that, right? We were random guys when we had absolutely no direction in life, right? uh, Mom was hoping that by the time I graduate, I'll start earning, and kind of, she will not have to do all the drudgery. And I was just having too much fun, like, I wish I had a direction in my life, right? That so I mean, electronics and soap have nothing to do with each other, right? Like, there's no direction in my life, right? So I'm I'm doing that, and then I would go around. There's a variety of things I did. Like, there's a variety of things selling, sunglass cases. Someone I knew, they were manufacturing sunglass cases. They said, Anand, we need to, can you sell this? I'm like, sure, I can sell it. I went to the shop, one shop. Again, like, when a kid shows up in a bicycle on a shop, there was the owner there, right? Very famous sunglass, shop in Ahmedabad called R Kumar. I went to the owner. I said, Uncle, you want to buy this? Of course, I had no idea how to sell, right? You buy. He's like, Beta, what are you doing here? Hey, how did you get a hold of this? I said, my uncle, I made up some story. My uncle manufactures these and all this. And this is my kid project, I have to do as part of my assignment, summer vacation, something I made up something, right? He's like, sure, how much? And actually, it was cheaper than what they were paying retail. I mean, what they were buying, right, from some manufacturer. So he bought it and he said, come back to me next month. Of course, I never went back. But there was, so growing up, I think my life was made up of some massive amount of unrelated experience in unrelated domains, right? That had nothing to do with each other. There was a lot of wandering phase. I was 16 years of age. One day yeah. So, going back to the, that was one phase, right? Then the electronics phase I told you, right? Like, where I was doing these things, right? Then the Vikram Sarabhai labs, uh, and then computers. So after the 12th grade, and on the side, I was also assembling PCs. Okay, so I graduated, like, I think I was in the 12th grade. Yeah, so let me go back to 12th grade. So 12th grade was when a friend of mine, sorry, friend as in, like, school friend, right? He said, yeah, there is a thing called AppTech, like, they teach you computers, and it'll be great. And again, it's not a career move, like, I'm talking about the year 1993, possibly two, right? Computers, you don't even know whether they're a thing of the future, right? All we were told, or what I understood, was computers are fast calculators. So it's like, hey, what, they teach you computers, and the fees is only 3,000 rupees a month. Now, 3,000 rupees was like a very princely sum for me. To give you perspective, our house rent was 500 rupees a month.
Yeah. Okay. That is a massive amount then.
Yes, yes, right. I mean, if my kid today walked up to me and says they want to do something that's three times the rent of my current house, like, and I own my house, thankfully, but I would not do that, right? So anyway, like, we started doing that, and in a couple of months, I met a very interesting character there, who then became my business partner in a future venture. But in and he had a computer, right? So on day one, like, his dad, again, multiple stories here, but his dad was PA to Chief Justice in the Gujarat High Court. He had a computer because his dad would take dictation, the Chief Justice, like, they would read out judgments. He would take a shorthand, like the French dad, come back home, type all those out, right? The judgments, right? Right. Now, he did not have to type them out. He could have just written them on a piece of paper. But you know what? His dad was a little progressive. He wanted all that. And this guy, then said, hey, I have a computer. You want to see that? Like, this Aptech has black and white computers. I have a color monitor. So, okay. And color monitors, for those, who might listen to this later, are not actually the color monitors that we have today. They were called CGA monitors. So they had 4 colors in total.
After which VGA must have come.
After VGA, there was Super VGA, which was 16.7 million colors, which is now what we have. And then now we are talking about resolution and all that, right? Contrast ratios and all that. But those were the days, and that's why. So in 2 months of aptech while they were teaching everyone Word, Star, and Lotus 123, which were the predecessors of MS Word and Excel sheets, right? These were DOS-based softwares. Actually, me and a buddy of mine, we were actually on to building a software in Fox Pro. So one day, on during one of the Diwali vacations, I think I was in first year of college by then, right? I went to wish Diwali, happy Diwali to this friend of mine who I'd met in Aptech, uh, and his dad actually challenged me. Kehta hai, you guys spend the entire day on computers, like what good is it? Can you make a software? Like, can you make this software? So he showed us a software, right? Uh, and yeah, we said we'll do it. We had absolutely no idea how to do it, okay, but we said we'll do it. And and then I think it took us 7 to 8 months, and we built it right in Fox Pro. Fox Pro 2.0. So we had to first figure out what software, because this was definitely not WordStar material, right? We said you can't build software in WordStar or in in Lotus 123. So you need a programming thing, and we got hold of Fox Pro. So there were three choices: DBase, Fox Pro, and Clipper back in the days. And we started with DBase, but very quickly went to Fox Pro because Fox Pro was faster, better, whatnot, right? Uh, and then we got Fox Pro, and so every night. So my schedule during those days was um, college. Which I never. I told you, right? I went a total of 50 hours of college in 3 years of my 3 years of college, right? So uh, uh, to give you a sense, right? I graduate. I mean, 10th grade was, I think I got a first class, 60% something, because typing and Sanskrit were two subjects which I scored very good on. In the 12th grade, I was, I think I got my, I think I graduated with the second class. I don't even remember how much it was. And then college, right? So you're not really looking forward to college because you have no idea what is going to happen, right? Programming language, then we started writing code. Then since he was PA to Chief Justice, he knew all the advocates, etc. So the next thing is that he says, can you go sell it? And we're like, okay, we will go sell it. And then we would he had a Bajaj scooter back then. We would hop onto his scooter, go to some advocate, show them the software, uh, quote them some random price. We had no idea how to price software.
Look, customer centric pricing,
We had
basically,
no
right?
idea. We would look at the size of their office. I mean, most of the high court lawyers have a very fancy office, right? They have bungalows in Ahmedabad. They have like fancy cars, good offices, wooden, full teak wood. Like extremely, rich looking offices, right? So if we saw someone who has a very good office, we'd quote 5,000 rupees, right? And then we come back and tell his dad, like, hey, uncle, we, 5,000. He's like, no, 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 no. That guy's a good friend. You can't charge him. So there went our kind of money making venture out of the road. But anyway, this is the growing up, right? So I'll shut up right now. But this is what, growing up for me was also, uh,
So, when did you get into that making a living wala mode? Matlab, so far, you've not given much thought that you need to make a living. So, like, when did that happen then?
so with my friend, right? So, we were selling software. I mean, we were not really selling software, right? Um, we were, sometimes was 3,000 rupees, sometimes 5,000 rupees, and we would divide up the money. While I was doing that, I was also, uh, I was also tutoring a couple of kids. I will not call them kids. Actually, they were in the third year of college. I was in the first year of college. Now, I was tutoring them on, I think it was English and statistics, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and you would ask me, Anand, how come that you were so bad in studies that you would tutor someone,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
And it was an
exactly.
opportunity I got. They told me 500 rupees per student per month. There are two kids that you need, like two students that you need to teach. I said, no problem, right? And I actually did not teach them anything. I would just go them, motivate them, make sure that they were in front of their books for an hour, honest to God, looking at the book, like, asking each other questions, whatever they did not understand, jot it down, ask your professor in college, come back, share the answer with me. And they scored, I think, 85% in both the subjects. Like, in English, 85 is like, I mean, their parents wanted me to continue. I just did not want to continue because, I mean, I had no idea what you know, you know, I mean, it was beyond my understanding, right, if you will, right? I mean, so I think I got lucky with that. But I did like I did so many odd jobs that there's no. I wish I could weave a thread, right, around them, saying that, oh, this helped me in this thing, right? It was just very, very random, right? We used to trade. I used to go with mom. We used to go, and we did a lot of seasonal business uh, uh, with my apartment friends. During the kite season, we would go, buy kites from the wholesale market, right? Get the manja kind of ready. And because if you don't have friends, right, number one, if you are not good in studies, if you don't watch television, and you are a loner, right, which is by not having friends, right, you actually end up with a lot of time in your hands, and you don't like to read or get into books and any of that, right? You actually, and I used to sleep about 3 hours every day from 6 to 9, and I've did that for several years. I think easily 4 to 5 years of my life I've done that, right? So on weekends also, like there is no weekend, right? I mean, every day is exactly the same, right? You sleep, go to sleep at 6, you wake up at 9. In 30 minutes, you shower up, you get ready, and you're out. Okay, doing whatever the world throws at you. Uh, and you end up with 21 hours of extremely productive day, right? Because there's no time pass, there's no way you can pass your time, right? So, and then you don't have a career. It's not like, oh well, I'm a graduate, I can only do these things, or I would do just anything. So if someone said, Anand, can you do 3D studio, I'd figure it out and I would do 3D studio, right? Like, no problem, right? I will um, i will do that. If someone said, can you do data entry for me, yeah, I'll no problem, I'll do data entry for you. Because I took typing in the 10th grade, right? So I would just do anything that the world would throw, because for me it was just a way of making money. uh, so I did not get serious about a job, like you said, where is the, when did you kind of get serious about money and all that. So I'll tell you now.
Did you complete college?
I completed college. I'll tell you a story around that part now, right? So I completed college in the year 96, right? And in the third year of college, actually in the second year of college, I started a private limited company, because hey, why not, right? We were Yeah, we were going, it was the time of Harshad Mehta. I mean, stock market, Ahmedabad stock market is kind of, the company is going IPO. Actually, this was post Harshad Mehta also, right? A lot of pharmaceutical companies fly by night, they would go rich. And I thought that my key to success, or my goal to riches, would be through an IPO of a company that I float. Now, I had no idea what the company would be working on. But I at that point of time, I had taught myself programming. I taught myself programming in 2 or 3 languages. I knew DBase, I knew Foxpro, I knew C. I did not know C++ then, right? So a private limited company, we ran it for a year. With another guy, right? The lawyer friend, he did not want to he wanted to become a career lawyer later on. So started a company. It did not go anywhere. One day we had a fight, and I I walked away from that. Okay, so now I'm in the third year of college, and I am still doing odd jobs here and there. But I had a private limited company, right? My grandpa and we got my relatives from Punjab and Delhi and Lucknow to come. It was a big event, inaugurate the thing and all that, right? Um, and there were absolutely nothing going on, because that business shut down, right, overnight. Why? Because we had a fight. By the way, that business only had two employees, me and the other guy. And the reason we had two employees was because you have to have a minimum of two managing directors. Uh, but mind you, that business was an excise bonded warehouse. So we were actually running a manufacturing unit without manufacturing anything. It was me uh, taking a train to Bombay, right? Of course, in general class, right? So I would be sitting, on the door of the general class, because if you've ever had the pleasure of even seeing the general class coach between Ahmedabad and Bombay, uh, you know that it's more packed than the local trains here in Bombay, right? Uh, yeah, it's extremely packed. There is no space to sit. There's no space to stand. So the only place is the toilets, which are also with people or with stuff that people carry. So that, yeah, the only place I found out was on top of the door. So I would swing the door open of the bogie and I would sit on top of the door, right, with my kind of legs stretched across. Yeah. No, because you don't fall off, right? Because it's midnight, right? The trains Bombay Ahmedabad run in the during night, uh, at 11 to 5, right? So, 5:36. So you land at Bombay Central, then you walk to Lamington Road. You wait until the shops open. So the shops open at 10. The staff shows up, but the main guy, like, the shop owner would not show up until 11:30, right? Uh, so you have to wait until then. Of course, I could not afford anything. So I would just have a coffee, sit on the sidewalk, wait for the shops to open, buy my parts, right? One motherboard, 4 MB RAM, this, that, and the other. Put them in a briefcase. Walk over to the other TT. Take the bus back to Ahmedabad, which would drop me off at some godforsaken location at 2 a.m. Uh, and then, either walk back to home or take a bus to home. Spend the entire night assembling the PC, and sell it off. The guy who told us and gave us the order for the PC, right? We would give it to that person, and take the money, and the margin would used to be 4-5 thousand rupees. Uh, so I did that for, until the fight happened, right? Until the fight happened, and I said, I have nothing to do with you. You have nothing to do with me. And that's where, and then I did nothing for a month. And mom was worried, right? Because I don't have a plan, right? But I was very busy, right, doing things, and she could see that, right? And for a month, I did nothing. Like, I was devastated, right? Because private limited company, I was the managing director, whatnot, right? And we had a horrible fight on some bullshit issue, right? It's not even a big issue, right? I mean, we were not making any money. It was just like some random stuff, right? And I still read my newspapers, right? So I have this habit of reading newspapers, like physical papers, right? So I used to read the newspaper. Sunday morning, I woke up around 9. I saw an ad in the newspapers, walk-in interviews for salespeople, and I said, "This is what I'm going to do." So I did not have any dress-up shirts, right? Because I never had to dress for office, right? So I wore my dad's shirt, and I think I had a trouser or whatever, like, some borrowed shoes. I walked over to their office. Sorry, I took a bus. I think I had a Luna back then. Yeah, I took a Luna. I took my Luna, went to their office, um, and uh, I it was a small office, like a imagine a 5-6 people company, right? A very small, quote unquote telecommunication company, uh, and they wanted salespeople, correct? And I went to the receptionist and I said, I'm here for there was an ad in the newspaper today. I'm here for the interview. She's like, okay, well, what year did you graduate? I said, I've not graduated yet. I'm in the third year of college. She's like, oh, one more year to go. I'm like, no, this is the last year. She's like, wait a minute, what? We wrote that you have to have a minimum of a BE degree, right? Uh, or if not BE, BSc, right? I said, well, I'm not, I'm studying BCom, but I mean, I can't tally a balance sheet to save my life, right? I can't even read one. Uh, but I can ace the interview because this is a technical job. So she said, no, 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 no. We don't do all that. Why don't you graduate and maybe next year you can come or whatever, right? Like, she just wanted to put me off. That I did not give up, right? I said, wait here. Let me be the last candidate that you ever send, right? So once all the candidates, all the walk-ins have exhausted, please send me in the very end. I just want to have 15 minutes with your boss. Like, I bet I'll make an impression and I will come out with the job. Uh, yeah, and I was there until I think from 10:30 in the morning all the way to 8 in the evening. A lot of people kind of went in, came out, um, and the reception lady then told me, "You're one hell of a persistent bugger. Like, okay, we'll send you in." We went inside, and the
Okay.
boss was very angry looking. I mean, he probably, I mean, he was briefed, right? They probably told him, right? So he was like, "Hey, man, hang on. What are you doing here? Why are you wasting my time? You should go. It's a Sunday. I have to go. I have to go to my kids. Blah blah blah." I said, "Sir, can you please leave all that chatter aside and ask me the questions that you were asking other people? Uh, you can ask me any question that you asked other people, right?" He asked me 3 or 4 questions, and he said, "Well, we have a problem." So the reception lady was also there in the room, right? I mean, I was standing. I was not even offered a seat because he wanted to kind of shout at me and then
Just
get
get
rid of
it
me.
over with.
Yeah. So he looked at the reception lady. He says, "We have a problem." She's like, "What problem?" She's like, "I like this guy. He's our man." Uh,
Okay.
uh, and well, she said, "But we've already given an offer." And then he looked at me and he says, "Well, we have a problem." I said, "But that's your problem." Uh, and So about 8:30 in the evening, he said, "Well, okay, I will deal with my problem. You got the job. When can you start?" I said, "You know what? I actually sleep at 6 in the morning. I can start right now." He's like, "No, no, no, you don't get it. It's a Sunday one to the office timings." I said, "What office timings? I work, I work literally 20 hours a day, right? So I don't care. If you have work, you can just give it to me." He's like, "No, no, no, this is not how we do it. You go home and your salary." So I got salary of 2,500 rupees a month, uh, right? Petrol charges would be extra. I think it was 80 paisa per kilometer, something like that, right? And my job was to sell modems. Now, modems, back in the days, yes, in 95, in the year 94, 95, 96 also, you needed modems to connect. And I used to use a telephone line and a modem to connect to the internet, right? And internet was not the internet that we see today with, Tinder and Facebook and TikTok and all that, right? It was just like plain text vanilla internet, right?
That bulletin board wala era, basically.
So, but those were not even the primary uses of the modem, right? A modem was used more to connect to locations. So, if you have an office in a central part of Ahmedabad and your factory is in the outskirts, you would buy a twisted copper cable from us, like a lease line, or like a dark lease line, right? Like unactivated, and you would put one modem on one side, on the other, and you would use it to transfer data. So anyway, I got this
You
technical.
would have to lay down the line yourself, or
No, so we had people, I mean,
okay, you would lay down the line for the
correct,
customer,
correct,
and
correct.
okay,
So
okay.
these are called lease lines. I mean, even now people when they laid on fiber, etc. Right? So uh, these were copper cables, and we would do that sometimes, right? So we would sell modems, and I was very good with all the tech stuff, right? So I could kind of hang off all that tech. So that's what was my first paying job. Now, and I used to, I had a monthly quota, and I used to meet and beat all my monthly quotas, right? So boss was very happy with me. I was having a ball. Of course, I was making a pittance, right, in terms of, but I was not complaining, like, hey, I have now a career, right? So, and I would my at some point of time, my boss trusted me with the keys to the office, right? And that's a big, big symbolic thing for a very small company, right? We didn't have any swipe cards back then, right, or cameras or fingerprints and all that, right? So getting keys to the office, and I asked my boss, can I please, because we are selling modems to, and also we were, and then we graduated to selling Netscape Navigator browsers, which is, for those who might listen later, like, is what Mark Andreessen of A16Z fame, he wrote that browser, right? So I was selling.
Before Microsoft was giving it free, it
That is
used to be
correct.
sold. I
Absolutely
remember.
right. Absolutely right. So I was selling Netscape Navigator 3.0, later 4.0, 4.0 Gold, and so on and so forth, right? So again, you sell technical products, you have an experience of assembling PCs and all that. So most of the businesses that I used to go, I used to take my Luna, drive out to the far exteriors of Ahmedabad to an industrial area, GIDC, right? Gujarat Industrial Development Corporation areas, where there are factory owners, and you would then tell them, like, you'd strike up a conversation with the guard. You go inside, sell the talk to the owner, right? Tell them, like, there's internet on, and but you start with the conversation. Where is your son? Like, my son is in the US. Like, okay, well, you can email the son, and uh, right. And most of them are, I mean, most of these guys are driven by FOMO, right? So if you have sold one to the neighboring factory owner, that's the second sale becomes very easy, because you know what, like, said Karsan bhai bought this thing, so he's like, no, no, I will want it. Or what does he do with it? I was like, sir, but he uses it to email other people. This factory requires, contacts in the Middle East and here and there and whatever, Germany. So he emails them. It's like, really, I will email them also. And but I want a computer also. So sometimes I would call up a buddy of mine to give them the computer, assemble them one for them. Or sometimes we would just ask them to get a computer, and then so anyway, so that was the thing, right? I also started, so the boss gave me the keys to the office, and I would spend the entire night just surfing around randomly on the internet. Okay, this is the very, very early days of the internet. uh, and one day I taught myself how to write HTML, and the boss showed up at 8:30 in the morning. He was a stickler for discipline. I mean, he was a very disciplined guy, stickler for timings, very, very organized guy. Shows up 8:30 in the office, and I'm sitting there in the office, like, hey, you didn't go home. I said, no, no, boss, come here, I'll show you something very cool. And I showed him, like, a web page with his name on it. He's like, how did you know? How did you know how to do this? I said, I taught myself this over the last few days. And I told him that I want to do this because the industrial guys that we go to, right? They will require some sort of a presence on the internet. And what if we could build their websites? That's more business for us. And he's like, yeah, bingo, let's do it. So, but he says, you know what? In the daytime, you are still going to be selling modems and browsers. All this you can do in the nighttime when you're sitting here doing nothing. I'm like, okay, boss, no problem. So, and this is a very small shop. So it's not that the boss gave me a new title and I got a raise, right? It was just for the same amount of money. The only solace for me was that the computer, in the small office where the computer was, right? So there were only two cabins in the office. One was the boss cabin. He had an AC, air conditioner, and where the computer was, there was the second AC, right? So if Ahmedabad heat, you're getting an AC cabin to yourself, even only during the night time, right? You're very happy.
It's an upgrade.
It's a
Right.
massive upgrade. I mean, I anyways to sit there, but now I have a reason to sit there, right? And the boss was a very progressive boss, right? He would kind of, he bought a scanner to scan the brochures, like, put it online on the website. Back in the days, websites, people did not know how to make websites, right? Anyhow, that's what I did, right? So during one of the days, there was an incident, right, that happened around that time. One day, someone called my boss and says, you know what, I've been struggling with an issue uh, to get I'm someone from the US. I'm doing a project here with a local company, but I just can't get my modems and these things to work, right? My internet connection and all that, right? So you send me a best person. I've heard a lot about your company, and my boss invariably sends me. And the guy says, hey, do so the guy speaks with an accent. And I'm there, I'm selling a modem. He's like, no, I already have a modem, but I just can't get I want to configure a few servers here, right? Can you help me do that? I said, yeah, of course. Like, so what are you looking for? He's like, I want to set up an SMTP server and a web server. I said, of course, you give me half an hour, I'll set it up for you. I set it up, and the guy was kind of, pleasantly surprised, to say the least. He was taken aback because no one spoke SMTP servers and web servers back in the year 95. Uh, and he said, well, how do you know all this? I said, I know all this because that's what I do all day, right? I do these kind of things all day. And he says, okay, do you know how to write code? I said, yeah, I know how to write code. I can program in C, I can program in FoxPro, DBase, Clipper. Uh, and it's like, okay, fantastic. So what do you do these days? I'm like, I sell modems during daytime and I build websites during the evenings and nights. It's like, come work for me. What's your salary? It's like 25,000. So I told him 2,500 rupees. He's like, I'll pay you 25,000 rupees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you come work for me. I said, I've never in my life valued money. I want to be very rich. I'm very extremely aspirational, right? But I never leave people because they were not paying me enough, right? As long as I'm having fun, I will always be with my boy. He's given me a lot of opportunities, right? Including giving me the job, trusting me with the office keys, building websites, all of those things, right? I'm having a blast of a time, right? I will not leave the job, but I'm around. Like, hey, you can call my boss, ask me by name, um, and I will fix anything that you have ever trouble with. We won't even charge you for it. Like, just it's on me, right? Because I enjoy these kind of things, right? And no one that I sell to kind of understands these things, right? So hey, it's a good thing to kind of meet you. Uh, so anyway, all that happened, and that chapter of selling and building websites came to an end, and I'll tell you how that happened. Uh, uh, One of dad's friends, right, who was a sales tax consultant, one day came over for tea to our place, and he asked mom, what is Anand doing these days? She's like, oh, he's become a sales guy, he's selling modems and all that, right? At least he dresses up nice, right? When he goes out in the morning, he wakes up on time, and it was like a big achievement for mom, right? Like, I'm like, okay, and he's like, there is this new computer course that's going on. It's called, I have no idea what it is, but I know that someone who, like one of his colleagues, right? Like, he was a sales tax consultant, right? So one of his colleagues, kind of, his daughter did the course, and she's got an extremely high-paying job in Hyderabad. This is the year, late '96, if you will, right? And so mom, so of course uncle leaves, because I don't come back from office, right? I'm doing websites. I come back my usual time, right? 6 in the morning, right? Um, so mom like wakes me up, she's like, what, this uncle was telling about some course that you're interested in all these computer things, right? So you better understand from uncle what it is about. I'm like, this uncle sales tax guy has no idea, man. We are doing the cool stuff, right? We are building websites. This is the future. What would the sales tax uncle know, right? So whatever, man. After a few times, uncle again came back, says, well, he never came to my office. Please, Anand, you send Anand to my office. So whatever, man. Some Saturday I went to his office. And the other guy told me about the course, right? So he said there's an institute called CDAC, and they made India supercomputers, and they run a course, and there's an entrance exam, and you have to pass that, and only then you'll get selected. So you should totally apply, blah blah blah, right? So like, talk to my daughter. She's so anyway, I don't think so. I ended up talking to the daughter, but I was convinced enough that maybe I should give it a shot, right? Just to kind of shut up the uncle and mom, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, check that check box, right? Saying that, okay, I did it. Okay, so thank you guys. And so that uh, I aced through the test. I passed it, right? I was in fact among the top 25. So there are 10,000 people. There used to be 10,000 people that apply. They would select, I think, 150 or 110 people. I was in the top 25. Uh, all programming, logic, all those kind of questions, right? And then uh, then I got selected, right? Now there was a big question, right? Because now we had to go. No, so there was no CDAC in Ahmedabad. There were centers in Delhi and Pune, and there was one other place, I think. Um, and I wanted to go to Pune because Pune was considered like the best. Uh, but of course, that meant that I had to go live in a hostel. Someone had to pay for my rent, those kind of things. We could not afford those things. So next thing mom tells me, you know what? Your bua lives in Delhi. So why don't you go stay with the bua? Um, and it's best, like, because we'll save on the living expense, on the meal expenses. You can eat at bua's house, and you can just go to your institute and come back. So I did that. Like, I went to CDAC. I went to my bua's place. Of course, bua used to live in North Delhi. The CDAC was in Hoskas Green Park, which is South Delhi. So I had to take two buses, 2.5 hours worth of commute each side. Uh, and go to the institute. I absolutely topped CDAC. Uh, I scored, I think the highest marks in the last 5 years or something like that. So that happened, and then and then there were placement, there were campus placement, so to say, right? And there were companies that were coming in. This was again the year 98, 99. The dot-com boom was going on in the US, the first dot-com boom. um, and there were companies that wanted to hire engineers, right? They had come to India because a lot of them were started by Indians, companies like I2 and MicroStrategy and a bunch of others, right? So I did not want to go to the US because I had to take care of my mom and my sister, right? So I said, you know what, I'm going to not appear for the campus placements. I'll go back to Ahmedabad. Of course, I had no idea what I'll come back and do in Ahmedabad, right? Because there was no programming jobs, there's nothing available. So I went back to my boss and I said, I'm back and now I can write code also. He told me, actually, and I respect my boss again, like, a very inspirational figure in my life. And I've been blessed with good bosses, good managers, good leaders, like, throughout my career, right? And that has shaped a lot of my thinking. He actually told me, Anand, we are very welcome to we are well, we are happy to welcome you back. We'll welcome you with open arms, but you are a little bit more qualified for this job. The world is open for you. You go explore something else. And to me, the words, that's what he said. What I heard was, we don't have a job for you, so get lost. Of course, right? Because hey, that CDAC fees was 30,000 rupees, right? And I had to pay that fees or whatever, right? So I applied to a programming company in Gandhinagar called Software Frontiers Limited, and because of CDAC, I think again they had requirement that you have to be minimum of a Bachelor of Engineering or BSc. But I think no, sorry, not BSc, BE or BTech. And I think because of CDAC, which was like a hot thing back then, I got invited to the interviews, and in the interviews, I actually ripped apart the interviewers. Yeah, because I told them that the questions are incorrect. You don't know the questions you should be asking, and they're like, "Oh, well, so what do you think, young man, is the question?" I told them the question, and then they went out, came back, and then they said, "Well, you're right," like, and then they gave me a programming problem, right? I solved it for them, and I got selected. And then again they said, "When can you join?" I said, I'm back. I have nothing else going on. We can join Monday morning." So Monday morning I go to the job, and life is good. Like, my salary is 3,500 rupees now. Again, nothing to kind of shine a light on, but it's 1,000 rupees more than what I used to earn. Again, this is the year 1998. So mom is like, "We spent 30,000 rupees, and all you get is like 1,000 rupee bump in your salary." I'm like, "But mom, I work for a private limited company now. It's a big company. They have a big campus. There are lawns. There's a mess, like, like a canteen where you go eat, right?" and I have a I was my title was junior programmer. Okay, so I'm a junior programmer now. It's a big deal. Being a programmer is a big deal. So like, okay, well, I think she said, what would I know? You're a programmer now. Good for you. And so I became a programmer, and life would go on. And then one day there was an announcement in the company that, hey, everyone, there is going to be an important event tomorrow in the company. So everyone, please clean shave, shine up your shoes, wear a tie to work, um, and all of that stuff. Everyone, right? So there was like a thing that went out. And again, this is not an internet company, right? So there was no internet was only available to the vice president of engineering, right? We all had email, but uh, that was like email routing, software back in the days. And we all used to work on like desktop machines. Again, no laptops, none of that. So just go back in time, right? Like imagine 98, and what. So we all showed up. Life is good, and I'm being my tinkerer self. I'm working on some new cool age things, new age stuff, right? That no one's kind of heard of, etc. And as I'm walking, so I'm going to the restroom, right? And as I'm walking along, I spot the same guy that I'd met 3 years ago, uh, when I was selling modems. And I walk up to him, it's like, hey, you remember me? He's like, yeah, of course. How can I forget you? Like, what are you doing here? I said, well, long story, but I went to CDAC, and now I know, few more programming languages. He was like, very good, very good. So why didn't I see you this morning in the town hall? I said, well, I was never invited. And this company, this Software Frontiers Limited, had the cream of the cream, right? Back in the days, electrical engineering or electronics engineering, or having a computer degree, like if you have taken computers as an elective, was a big deal, right? And right, this was part of the TVS group, Ashok Muthanna TVS group, right? So it was like a big deal, right? And I was some commerce graduate, so uh, so of course they did not want to kind of invite me to the town hall, right? Town hall was done with like 20 people, all select cream of the crop, like and he's like, I didn't see you in the town hall. I said, well, I was not invited. But I said, forget all that. Like, let me show you something very, very cool I'm working on. And I took him to my kind of workstation, and I turned on a few other workstations. I showed him something which, was like the seeds of distributed computing, if you will, right? Um, and he was again pleasantly surprised, to say the least. Uh, he took me and he said, "Why don't you come to me to the vice president's office?" And I was shit scared. I said, "Man, this is going to be catastrophe. Like, I am going to lose my job, because the VP is not going to be very. I mean, he was a very strict guy, the VP, right? So much so that if you're late by 15 minutes, you have to go sign a attendance register in the VP's office, right? And he would ask you, "Why are you late? It's the third time you're late in the last 6 months." Things like that, right? Like a guy you don't even want to run in the hallway, right? Like if he's in the hallway, you would not go. Like you'd just sit in your seat, right? Um, Takes me the VP of engineering's office, and he points at me and says, "I want this guy to lead the project." And the VP is like, "No, no, hang on. There is some misunderstanding. What do you mean lead the project?" It's like, this. I want this guy to be the leader of the project that we were discussing this morning. And the VP says, "Anand, why don't you step out and let's have a, I want to talk to this guy about the project." And I step out like a principal's office. I'm like reminds me of my school days, but I was stepped out after about eternity, which was 50 minutes, like but it seemed like eternity. The vice president himself comes out and invites me back in and says, "Anand, you are going to lead the project." And I have no idea what happened in those 50 minutes, right? There was a lot of shouting, there was a lot of kind of screaming, they were on the whiteboard, blah, blah, blah. And I became the leader of the project. Now, a leader is not a leader because someone told you that you are a leader, right? A leader has to have people who believe that you are a leader. So my problems only compounded, right? Because if they declared that I'm a leader, then I need to, lead people, right? I mean, there's going to be a team, and they have to believe, and all the highly educated people have to believe that I'm the leader. But thankfully, I was able to pull that off. I became a leader. That gave me a chance.
Which client was this?
This was a company called Registry Systems, based out of Sausalito, California, uh, and that became a future employer for me as well when I ended up in the US. Uh, but that gave me a lot of confidence, right? We were the ones that got internet. I set up a gateway, so everyone in the company, like very hush hush, could got internet access. Uh, I kind of democratized internet for the entire company, right? Because previous job I was selling internet, right? So how can you not have internet, right? Um, and except for the VP, everyone knew, like, that, hey, there is going to be internet, right? uh, Available to everyone. So anyway, we did that, and I that gave me an opportunity to go to the US for the first time. And there are several stories, like, that I'm skipping right now, but just going to the US embassy for a B1 visa, uh, when your salary is 3,500 rupees, and you are not a graduate. I mean, you're a graduate, but you're not like a like an engineer. Is a story for some other day, right? But I got my B1 visa, B1 B2. I went to the US. This was my first time traveling in an aeroplane, right? I'd never even been to an airport before that. Took the aeroplane, went to California, and on my second trip there, this gentleman, the guy our foreign collaborator, right? Um, he said, what, Eric is going to meet you for lunch. And I had no idea what lunch meetings were, right? Because we don't have lunch meet. I mean, now we have everything, right? But back in the days, lunch was your home dabba, right? You don't have lunch meetings, right? I mean, you go out in the evenings to a restaurant, right? Uh, the year 99, I'm talking about, right? So he's like, what, hey, uh, Eric is going to have meet you for lunch, and then we will whatever, right? Like,
Hmm.
so some
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and Eric and I met, and he got up and he said, "Oh, I forgot to give you something," and he handed out a. So these envelopes are called Manila envelopes, right? They're brown in color. So he handed me a Manila envelope and says, "Hey, sorry, I got this for you." And he left. And so after the server collected our dishes, everything was clean. I opened up the Manila envelope, and there was an offer in there, right? I mean, it seemed like an offer. Again, I had never seen offer letters. I'd only seen one offer letter, right? My Ahmedabad boss never gave me an offer letter. He just said, show up on Monday, because small company, right? 7, 8 people company. And the private limited company, the Software Frontiers, they gave me an offer letter, right? So I'd seen only one instance of an offer letter in my life. Uh, and it says, Anand and software engineer, 95,000 US dollars will be your salary, and whatever, right? And at that point of time, there were several questions that raced through my mind, right? Like 95,000 rupee, the dollars, even now is like a big sum, right? Uh, I mean, it's a huge amount of money, right? And back in the days, also, it was like a massive amount of money. And I had no idea whether, this is, what is the duration like, of course, it's all annual, right? But I had no idea. I was that dumb. But anyway, like, so I got that offer. I came back, and then we got our H1B. Uh, there is a subplot where I elope and I marry with my wife, but I'll skip that for now. Uh, during office hours, during the lunchtime, but I'll skip that.
She was like a work colleague or something,
She
or
was like a work colleague with me, not in the same team, not in the same department. Uh, and the first time, so we used to travel from Ahmedabad to Gandhinagar in a company bus, right? And one day I did not have enough place to I did not have a place to sit, so sat. So I was a loner, right? I told you, I introvert growing up, right? So I never used to be comfortable around women or girls or whatever, right? So there was no place to sit. I sat right next to her, right, like almost at the edge of my seat, right? Just, and I told her, hey, I'm off to the US, and she's like, yeah, good for you, like, whatever, right? Because she asked me, are you the one that's giving internet to the entire office? I'm like, yeah, it's me, like, it's like, okay. So, I mean,
okay,
the
so you
conversation
were already
started.
famous.
Yeah, and conversation started. I was not the one to start the conversation, right? And then the next thing is like, I'm telling her I'm off to the US, and I went to the US, and being the dumb me that I am, right? I bought 3 rings, right? One for my best friends, that lawyer friends kind of mom, one for my mom, and one for her, like a ring. And when I came back, I gave it to my friend's mom. She was very happy. She's like, "Oh, you are the son I never had. Like, you're like a son, better than all this, this guy." My mom was overjoyed. And when I gave the ring to her, like, uh, you know, the girl I met in the bus, like, she was upset. It's like, do you even know why are you giving this ring to me? I'm like, I got it for my mom, and the same ring. She's like, do you know the significance of giving a ring to a girl? I was like, no, well, I gave it to my mom. She's like, mom is not a girl, like, whatever, right? I went to Macy's, which seemed like a big store in the US. I asked the guy, I have $60 to spend. What is the thing that you can, and I don't want to spend on one gift, right? So divide by 3. I have to get gifts for 3 women, right? Um, so find me something that, that's worth $20 each, right? And he says, well, there is this ring that you can buy. And I bought 3 rings, right? That was it. I had no idea that I wanted to propose the girl or any of that, right? And then, of course, then we kind of, over the fight we kind of bonded up, and we became whatever, like fell in love, and then we married. But when the H1 came, I was married, and we went to the US, uh, started life in that startup that I was given an offer for. After the startup shut down in 3 years, again dot-com bust happened, 9/11 happened in the US. A lot of businesses died around that time, right? Because the economic situation was not that great, and the priorities of businesses changed and all that. I moved on, and then I joined AT&T Wireless, which again was like again challenge the interviewer kind of scenario. Uh, I actually wanted to come back, and we were just ready to pack up and leave. And literally like a day before that, someone from AT&T Wireless called me, and they said, "Well, we got your resume from a consultant, blah blah blah. There are questions we want to ask you." And then it was a Thursday evening, and Saturday we kind of wrapped up everything, put a comforter and a desktop in the car, and we drove from San Francisco all the way to Seattle.
As in, by Saturday, you got the offer.
Yeah, so I mean, the US is very quick in these things, right? They don't like there's no notice period or any of. I mean, you get it. So I got it immediately. They gave me a verbal confirmation. They said you got the job, and you can. When can you start? I said I can start Monday. I'm in San Francisco right now. I can drive up to Seattle over the weekend. I anyway love driving, right? So it'll be a good long drive for me. I'll drive up. So we drove up, and in Seattle we got the job. Yeah, it was a great experience. I worked the previous stint, as you remember, like was with Brians, which was a startup, and this was one of top companies in the US. I worked for AT&T Wireless, which then later rebranded as Singular. And yeah, I think the experience was great. Like worked with a very good set of people, and I had a super boss who was very confident on my capabilities, abilities, and she kind of we carved out a project for ourselves, and then we spent a lot of time working on that project, in close contact.
But this was like a shortish kind of a stint. No, you didn't stay too long there.
I stayed, if I remember this correctly, for about a year and a half. So yeah, you can call it like that. There was a change of management in AT&T Wireless, and I was hired as a contractor. And after the change of management, I think there was some other, like wireless or telecom was going through an interesting time back then. This is 2004, and they decided to kind of get rid of all the contractors. And again, I got an ultimatum to kind of go find something else to do, since that Friday would be my last day. Yeah. I applied in a few places. I got interviewed as well. But the one place that I got selected in was Motorola. And Motorola was like a dream come true. They were the pioneers of radio communication, which is the foundation of all things telecom. Um, and I was working in Seattle downtown, uh, Pioneer Square, as what it's called, which is iconic because there is the Starbucks, and there's Amazon, and there's we had a small little Motorola office. Motorola was headquartered in Chicago, but this was a company that they had acquired, and that became the Motorola outpost in Seattle. We were not working, as you can imagine, on the hardware stuff. That was most of Motorola. We were in fact working on the software version uh, for their newly launched Razer devices. If you remember Razer and the Rage, yeah, they were the iPhones of their time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very very popular. So we were working on some sort of a software for that. That while the device sits on your in your pocket, doing nothing, it receives things that you've subscribed for. For example, weather updates, traffic, stock news, health and fitness tips, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was again a year and a half stint at Motorola. So again, why did you move? Like,
Yeah, it was a year and a half. I worked with an incredible set of people there. In fact, the best so far in my career. Um, Extremely sharp people, and very very committed, and I learned quite a bit right from them. Um, Now,
I think as I said earlier, right, that I never wanted to move to the US to begin with. I think it was already 6.5 years of living in the US, and we were having thoughts of coming back to India and all that. Uh, Motorola was like a great job, like learning was good, all of that was good, but I just wanted to get back to India. So around that time, I started exploring ideas, like what you could do. Again, I had a very bleak view of India at that time, from a job perspective, like whether I will be able to land a job, because again, a non-engineering background. While I did have work experience in the US, but even to get at least when the India I left, right, in 99, was the India where you had to submit your resume, and they would look at the qualifications, education qualifications, before they even looked at the experience,
Before
right?
you got an interview call
Yeah,
and all.
yeah. And today's India is very, very different, right? It's actually much more open and much more inclusive and all that. But back in the days, that was the thing. And I I thought that I had absolutely zero chance of landing a job. So there were two things I started doing, right? One was looking, or just ideating, right, on what could we kind of, what could I work on. Again, the entrepreneurial itch was strong, and I wanted to uh, start out like in India, right? So come here, like startup and all that. Um, and there were a few ideas I was working on, like in my head, right? One was like the classifieds idea for India. The other one was like a used car marketplace, uh, right? And
Like Cars 24 and all.
correct. Actually, more like Kelly's Blue Book in the US. So Kelly's Blue Book actually does not sell cars. They only, you can list cars there, and the transaction happens offline. But that's like a ready reckoner for a certain model, certain year,
What is the
certain
price?
color. Yeah, yeah. What's the price and all that. And the third thing was working on this concept of restaurant reviews, recommendations. So anything that you did outside of sleeping and working, like anything that you kind of did for leisure, whether it was eating out or going to a gym, or going to like a lounge or whatever, like uh, we wanted to we wanted to cover that, like build kind of inspired heavily by Yelp in the US, but that was like the idea, like we'll build it for India. So that was one thing, and the second thing is I started learning Mandarin, uh, of all things, in Seattle. So I started taking some private classes.
Like why Mandarin? Like
Yeah, so that was my, I don't know, that was my like plan B, right? Like in case India did not work out for me. Again, if you look at it from the point of view of the West, right? Again, go back in time, year 2005. You think the center of gravity is moving towards the east in terms of innovation, in terms of new things. The markets are opening up. There's a lot of opportunity, and things like that. And I was India kind of, I know like the back of my hand, because having lived and grown here, all so being here all the life, right, all my life. And China was interesting because there was a lot of stuff happening in China, primarily in hardware in those days, and a little bit of software. But there were all these things that were happening. And you think that if you knew Mandarin, somehow you could kind of link India and China. So Hindi, English, and the third language, the most popular language in the world, like Mandarin. If you know that, say there could be something. I had no concrete idea of what it could be, but that was also one of the things that I started learning, and I actually became quite proficient. Like in 6 months, I had a good vocabulary. I could speak a little bit haltingly, but I could understand everything. And yeah, my teacher had just started teaching me how to write the numbers, and things like that. And that's when I decided to kind of move back to India, uh, and we decided. I mean, so I asked my wife, like she's open to the idea, and she was of course thrilled to come back. Was missing her parents and whatnot, and so and the idea of Burp, which was going to be my startup in India, was taking shape a little bit more concretely. Right, I started writing code for that. We started like ideating a little bit more, and we started.
you had a co-founder also for
I
this?
had a co-founder, yeah. So I co-founder was based out of California, the Bay Area actually. Yeah, and that co-founder and I, we decided that hey, it's time, and if we should be able to do it, like So we said, hey, you know what, we are going to
He was also an Indian origin person only.
Indian origin, but from the US, so born and brought up in the US, but yeah, so Indian American. Um, uh, and yeah, yeah. I mean, we are both young, but he was younger than me by a few years. And we said, hey, you know what? Let's take the plunge. He was eager to kind of come to India, experience it, living here in India and all that, right? When you're in the West, like everything seems a little bit exotic, like Eastern philosophy, living the way we live and all that, right? So we said, okay, let's do it. What harm can it do to us, right? If nothing else, we will actually have some sort of a formal entrepreneurship experience, and we can then if nothing works out, we can always find jobs that we can go back to.
Hmm, 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 hmm. Okay. So you went back to India then and started this off?
Came back to India, and I landed back in Ahmedabad because that's where my family was, my mom and everyone else. And uh, then I would visit. So we as all that was happening, Burp was taking shape, and the first city that we thought we would launch was Bombay. Um, and because Bombay had like a thriving nightlife, there were a lot of restaurants. It's a very big city, and we said this city is going to be perfect, right, for nightlife. Bombay has a certain image also, right? It's a very safe place, and people roam, during nighttime, like going from one bar to the other, and there is enough clubs, and there's a lot of activities or things available, right, to do. There's endless things to do here in Bombay, right? So we thought that we would launch here first. So I would kind of take down trips to Bombay, like just to see what's going on, like go back, uh, and yeah. So that was like the starting point. In June of 2006 is when I finally decided to move or relocate to Bombay, and around that time, my other founder also kind of came down from the US, uh, and we rented a one bedroom apartment, and I literally started life all over again, right? Like having come back from the US and all that, but living in a one bedroom apartment without your wife and kid because they were in Ahmedabad, uh, and starting up all over is like it gives me a thrill. Like it's also a little scary because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't have money for salary and all that, but it's a little it gives you a little thrill, right? If you're up for that kind of challenge.
Hmm. And this was like self-funded, like from your savings in the US. You
Self-funded. Deep, my other founder's name is Deep, and Deep's mom gave us a little bit of fund to kind of start the business, and it was their money and a little bit of the savings that I had accumulated while in the US. Not a whole lot of money. We were living off Maggie noodles for most days, and extremely cheap, like homemade meals, not cooked at our place, but some neighborhood auntie, as if right, like yeah, like 60 rupees a meal. We found a Punjabi auntie who would like send us the meal and all that, and that was the start point of Burp, like a very humble starting point, and and there
so
are
you launched it as a like a desktop website. Obviously, उस time
yes,
पे mobile app तो कुछ था नहीं.
there were no, yes, 2006 there were no uh, smartphones. Uh, People used to give each other missed calls as a way to signal that hey, I'm I want to talk to you, or whatever, like this time to meet or something. Uh, and people would be playing the game of Snake on the Nokia phones. Uh, and it was challenging for us, to say the least, right? So we of course launched in on August 15th, 2006, and it was meant for it was a desktop site.
Hmm. How did you get the initial listing? You must have like manually done it, na? एक एक restaurant जाके.
Yes, so we hired a team of a couple of folks. Uh, I wrote the spec for that. Hey, we need to get the listings, number one, and we also need photographs. And please keep this in mind that there was no Google back then, right, in India. So there was no Google local in India. So we had to uh, either go down, or maybe the couple of folks we had, would kind of on a bike, they would drive down on streets, collect menus. Um Again, the menus were there to be kind of, they were not like the menus you have today, right, where you can go to Zomato or Swiggy and you can browse, right? The menus are meant for like a home delivery only, done by the restaurant. There was no aggregator or sort, right? uh, and people would not go to a restaurant and ask for a menu, right? I mean, like a to go menu, right? Like most of the menus would be slipped under the door or through the newspaper, delivered to the newspaper, so you would know of the restaurants in your neighborhood. uh, and taking a picture of a restaurant was alien concept. The first restaurant we went to, chased us away.
You would have thought के income tax raid हो रही है types.
No, we didn't time it well. Like, we went at busy hour, and then the busy hour, like, there are people sitting in the restaurant, and we started taking pictures. Like, who the hell are you, and why are you doing this? Are you from some newspaper? Like, hey, or maybe income tax. I don't know. Like, but they drove us away. And the second one that we went to, and of course there were all kinds of things, right? Like most of the times the owners are not present at the restaurant. And the whole taking a picture, people think that this is from competition, or they're trying to scope how much business does my restaurant do and all that. So we kind of invented fake badges like CNN. We said that there is a India's top restaurants. There is a survey going on, and we need pictures and all that, and it would show up on CNN and all that. So we did anyway. We got our listings done, and that we did not realize at the time, but that would become our IP, intellectual property, right? Because no one, and Yellow Pages had no business to list down the restaurants, right? Yellow Pages were more for the industrial and business, B2B. Yeah, correct, B2B, right? So they had those. We had the restaurants, and very soon we expanded into other categories like gyms and yoga centers, and of course there are very few. Like, I mean, the scene in India has exploded now. There are all the home chefs, and all sorts of dark cloud kitchens and all that, right? Back in the days, life was a little simpler. And we started with Bombay. We had a very good listing, um, like a database, like, listings, right, of restaurants and these kind of things, right? Bars and lounges and clubs and whatnot. And then it was hard to kind of spread the word of mouth, right? Because how would you do that? There is no Facebook, there is no Twitter, and there's no Google. So we started reaching out to some of the bloggers one by one. I mean, this this sounds so dated. Like, I can't believe this.
Influencer marketing.
Well, yeah. And we invited them to the platform, and they started writing reviews, and we had to bootstrap that, like, with their help and all that. So yeah, so that was birth.
Okay. And like, you eventually also raised funding in that, no? Like, how easy was it to raise the funding for, I mean, for that time period when I think even Flipkart was not funded at that time, no? Like,
Correct. So there was no Flipkart when we started out. Flipkart came in a couple years later. In fact, everything was a challenge, right? Not only funding, but even to hire like an engineer, right? Because we put an ad in the newspaper and people would show up. And they would walk into the office, and the office was no office. It was like a one-bedroom apartment. And the living room was converted into an office, and the bedroom was used, like, shared by Deep and me. And people was like, okay, well, do I need to are you like an offshoring agency? Are you going to send me on site? So it was hard to explain that, hey, no, this is where you are going to work. Like, we are a product company, and okay. And the second hurdle would be their parents, because their parents would be like, no, you can't go work for like a faceless company, right? There is the TCS and the Wipros of the world and the Infosys of the world. Why would how much salary are they giving you, and all those things? So that was like a challenge. Getting internet into the two-bedroom apartment, sorry, the one-bedroom apartment was a challenge. Like how we went to MTNL's office and kind of coerce them to give us like a dial-up connection. And I think the biggest challenge was raising funding. In fact, we met, I would say, about easy 25 to 30 VCs, or anyone that seemed like someone who would give us money. Uh, and funny thing was that they were users of Burp. Like, so when we said, hey, we are founders of Burp, they'd say, hey, we have heard of it. And in fact, I used you guys last night, like, to find a restaurant or whatnot. But if you said that, hey, I need to, we need to get funded and all, we get a very vague answer. So no one was ready, or no one was ready to commit dollars to the consumer story of India, right? Uh, and
And these were like VCs in India that you were meeting, or also using your US connections and
no, we didn't have any. I mean, listen, I did not have any US connections, right? I mean, I was like a software engineer in a company, right? And things were not as open as they are now with Clubhouse and Twitter, and you can go reach out to anyone, right? The circles were a lot closed back then, so I did not have any connections, any VC connections in the US. I had, we went here. The, we were quite popular. We were quite a rage, like back in the days. We got covered by the press quite a bit, and so we became very popular. A lot of people would come in, write reviews, upload listings, tell us about what's happening in the neighborhood, like a new restaurant opened up or something shut down, add pictures, food pictures, whatnot. uh, so we attracted our fair share of interest from the VC community, but these meetings led to nowhere, right? When we told them, hey, we don't need a lot of money, we need like 500K, and they'd be like, no, you need to take more money. It's like, okay, well, we can't think anything beyond. What will we do? 500K is a lot of money, right? If you don't want to blow it up in fancy things, right? Uh, uh, but I mean, we got passed by everyone, uh, and then we happened to meet uh, the uh, the CEO of Network 18, who kind of took a liking to us, and he then told us about Infomedia 18, which was like the largest publisher of Yellow Pages and a super brand in India, listed company, erstwhile known as Tata Yellow Pages. Uh, Infomedia had just acquired it from Tata, the Tata Group, and they said, "Hey, we could acquire you here in this company." And because Yellow Pages was a dying kind of business, right, or maybe a stagnant business, and this was a newer way of doing things. Going online was like a big deal, and we had a very, very cool looking site and all that. So I think that happened for us. We ended up getting acquired in 2009 by Infomedia 18, and Deep and I landed up there. Uh, yeah.
so how well were you doing when Infomedia acquired you? Like, uh, I assume it would have been ad revenues, right? Like,
There were no ad revenues. So funnily, we did not know, rather we were oblivious to business models, right? We wanted to, we did not have, I mean, like, how do I say this? We had some ad revenue, not a whole lot. We had enough to kind of get by. But please understand, there was no Google, right? So you can't like plug in a Google AdSense or whatever, and there were no local advertisers. So even if you see ads, they're from they're for US brands or European brands that you don't have any business with, right? Uh, so we wanted to keep everything nice and clean. So we didn't have, I mean, in terms of revenue, it was nothing, I'd say. And but in terms of the brand, we were a cult. Like we had cult level followings. We One of the initiatives we did in Burp was to put out these certificates, Burp certified restaurant or Burp certified bars, and they took
the
off,
way
right?
TripAdvisor, like a lot of restaurants and bars publish like
Correct.
X rating.
That's correct. Yes, except for in India, no one did that. The only brand to do that was the Times Food Guide, and they had stopped a couple of years before Burp started giving these certificates out, right? And ours were not rigged. Ours were done, by the popular, I mean, by users. So any place that had a consistent 4 or 5 star rating for the entire year, not one dip, right, would get that certificate. Um, yeah, so you could not buy your way into it. So we were like, by the like people for the people kind of mode. and that kind of helped us establish, that made the brand real, right? For a lot of people who would just access us online, they could see this offline, right? So we were real then for them.
Okay. So when Infomedia 18 acquired you, like you continued to work on scaling it up further, or what happened? Because I mean, Burp is not around today as such. So,
Correct. Yeah. So we did, yeah, we did for a few years. And then I think Network 18 lost the appetite for a local kind of business because they were primarily television and media and movies and all that. So they kind of merged Infomedia 18 into Network 18. And therein I met who would become my future kind of co-founders in CleverTap. But that's where me and the other founder of CleverTap, we were running all the digital assets. So Burp literally was also one of the assets, but the other assets were like First Post, Money Control, Cricket Next, IBN Live, and all those kind of things, right? So we acquired a much bigger portfolio of products to work on, and Burp was just one of those things. Uh, and yeah, a couple of years working for Infomedia 18 and a couple of years working for Network 18. I think the in larger companies the wheels grind very slowly, and you kind of sometimes miss the action. Um, so I went to my boss at that time, Sunil, who's my co-founder now in CleverTap, that hey, we gotta I want to quit and I want to do something else, and we make a great team, and it'll be if we could do something. Uh, and there was the third guy also, so who's also co-founder, Suresh. We said, hey, this guy is a extremely smart chap also, so we should take him along, and the three of us can do something, right? We share similar thoughts, we have the right mindset, as a team we play very well, and we can figure out the idea, what product or what kind of problem we will solve, but let's get out of this place first. So that was like the start of clever end of like our journey, Network 18, and start of CleverTap.
okay, okay. So, you quit without a clear business in mind. So, how did that conceptualization of the business happen?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the the uh, mm, the starting point was in Network 18, because what we discovered, like one of the things is, when you're running multiple digital properties, is that okay? Well, how many users do we have, and what's the how many common users do we have across all the properties, right? Same guy going to Money Control, then consuming news on First Post, and eating out using Burp, and so on and so forth, right? So, and there was no system in place that could do this uh, uh, math for us, right? Including internal systems, right? I mean, we had some log files, and we had like all the engineering solutions, but nothing from a product perspective that put it all together. And so that was one thing. Second thing is, like if we know that this it's lunch hour, and if this person is hanging around on like a stock market side, we could send them an alert, right? Or if we knew that they had like say a particular company stock in their portfolio, and they're hanging around on some other site, we could target them, right? Saying that, hey, did you know there's like they just released their annual report or something like that, right? Breaking news, things like that. So the idea was there. We executed a very like a engineering heavy version, very custom version, like more like an ad model for Network 18 also. So we built a little bit of an ad thing, right? That based on if a user, I mean, as a user traverses all our properties in Network 18, uh, we can target the user better, right? So if we knew that this guy, say for example in Bombay, is in South Bombay, goes to all the five-star hotels, has a portfolio of like a lot of money in Money Control, then we know that there's no point in showing discount deals or things like that to this person, right? Maybe we could pitch
Luxury
yeah,
items
luxury
instead.
items, international vacation, whatever, right? So we built a little bit of an ad server there, which is probably still working, right? Still uh, but the idea was never kind of fully accepted internally. I think they wanted more of the like, hey, let's keep things in maintenance and not innovate and all that. while we were itching to kind of do bigger and greater things. Uh, and hence we quit and we said, okay, well, we don't want to build an ad business, like an advertising led business, right? Uh, but what if you could use the same similar like thing to engage the users better, right? To retain them better. For example, if to carry forth the same terminology, right, or same example, let's say I have a stock of a certain company in money control, and if there is some breaking news about that particular stock, right, or if that stock has gone below a certain price point, or there's something else that's happening, right, in that industry, and if you send me a notification, right, now that would be not spam for me, right? That would be like, wow, like, hey, I did not know that stock market crashed today and I should have sold my shares yesterday or whatever, right? If you are sending me irrelevant stuff like, AGMs of all the companies in the BSE 30 list, like, I couldn't care less, right? Because I don't have stocks of those companies. So how do you make communication more meaningful for the user of an app, right? By knowing what they did in the app, like, what are their activities. For example, if you are a vegan guy, right, and if you only order vegan fruit from Zomato or somewhere else, right, they probably should not pitch you Barbecue Nation or those kind of places, right? Uh, and that's so better targeting leads to a more happy user. Better targeting with the right time, right level of personalization, uh, and the right amount of personalization, uh, it leads to better outcomes. User is happy, they will come back to your brand. These are timely interventions, as we call them, and that leads to a retained user, right? Um, and that was the thesis, right? And we said, okay, well, we can build this solution, uh, and that is what we will do, because there are companies where companies try to like communicate with the user. For example, even in network 18, no offense to them, but we would send emails to users, and there was no targeting, like, and everyone would get the exact same email. And as the IT or engineering guys, we were told to kind of, hey, can you get that database and this database and merge them and whatnot, like make it more intelligent, right? And that was like a Herculean task, right? You had to put these things together, and
Very manual work,
yeah, and
basically.
we looked around, we asked around, like everyone's doing the same thing, like, and everyone's doing this manually by hand. And we said, no, you guys can't be serious. Like, there is nothing right now that's make this automated, that makes it intelligent. Uh, the world was kind of opening up to big data and all sorts of AI, ML things, right? And why couldn't you put this all to? Why can't you learn, right, from my behavior and only show me things that I care about? Uh, if I've only bought books from Amazon ever, why would you show me like a pressure cooker or a rice cooker, whatever? Like, don't show that to me. Show me a new book. Like, show me the New York Times bestseller, right? I'm more likely to buy that. And if I've already bought that, don't show that to me again, right? So make it intelligent, like how you talk to a friend, right? They don't talk about the same things again and again, right? Unless they really care about that thing, right? So
Right, right. So this sounds very good on paper, but like, why would a company give you so much data on their customers? Why would Amazon share so much data about their customers with you for you to create this? And to what extent are you getting plugged in? Are you like like providing like a AI engine for Amazon to use on their own and not share any data with you and build their own emails, or do you take care of the whole experience where you actually look at the data, or your software looks at the data and then decides this promotion should go here? Like, help me understand the nuts and bolts of it.
yeah, no, another great question. I think it's not that the companies are giving us the data, right? We are no business being in their business, right? We run our own business. So what they do is they store their data with us as CleverTap, the product, not the company, uh, and then they use that data. So what we provide are tools for them to one discover insights on their own users, right? For example, Akshay is a new user. He just downloaded and started using your app today, while Anand has been a long time user. He's been very active on your app every day since the last 30 days, right? Now you'd imagine that they get different treatment, right? Uh, right. Yeah, I mean, it's only natural, right? If you go eat out at a restaurant, if you're a frequent patron at a restaurant, they know what your preferences are, right? Maybe you like your spice level to be mild, right? Or you have allergies to a certain thing, and they know about that. Why? Because you go there like 3 times a week, and because you enjoy their food, right? If every time you had to go over the entire list of, well, the spice level is mild, and I don't, I am allergic to something, that, you would not, that experience would not be as much fun. So the companies, when they send this data or they record this data with CleverTap, they're actually not giving the data to us. They own the data; it's theirs. We
Hmm.
provide
Okay,
tools.
there's like some API integration.
Exactly, right? Like they can, yeah, they can analyze this data, they can slice and dice this data, and they can, they can extract insights out of that. That's one. Two, they can use these insights to then meaningfully target their users, right? And when I say target, I mean communicate, engage, and reach out to them. So for example, if the new user, let's say you were the new user in the example, let's say after 15 minutes of using the app, you could not complete the registration process, uh, or you did not come back the following 7 days, right? Versus Anand, who was a loyal user, used it every day, did not come back for the next following 7 days, right? The treatment for both these users will be different. In the first case, they might assume that this person has lost interest in our app, or could not figure out, or there are lower trust levels. In the second case, they might say, okay, Anand's gone away too, but there might be a different reason, right? In the past, we have seen him disappear for 7 days, but he comes back on the eighth day. That's his style, right? Let's say I mean, this is a little ridiculous example right now, but let's say there's a new movie in town and there's a flurry of activity today, right? It's Friday. Hey, let me go look up, which movies are there, and, seats available, are seats available, and is this near my home, and is it the gold class and whatnot, right? I won't perform the same activity on a Monday or a Tuesday. So there's a flurry of activity and then it dies down, right? Or if there's an IPL season, I might watch a cricket match every day, but then once the IPL is done, I will not go back to the app for a long time, right? Maybe I'll go back to watch the highlights of the matches I missed, or watch my favorite cricketers like interview, but it's not as intense as watching IPL 3 hours, like, stuck on the phone, just watching the match, right?
Hmm, 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 hmm.
And if you can learn from that pattern, so if you learn that, okay, well, this guy goes away for a little while then comes back, you probably will not spam the person with messages and, all sorts of irrelevant things, right?
Hmm. So, is this meant for a sophisticated user or for a dumb user, for a lay user? Let me not use the word dumb. For example, do you need to be very sophisticated and understand, uh, how to create cohorts of your customers, and accordingly what kind of communication to send to which cohort? So does it need a sophisticated user, or is it for a lay user that it will automatically suggest to you that this is what you should send to this cohort?
Correct. So it appeals to both, and again, there's no dumb user, right? There are novices, I would say, and there are advanced users, right? And these are kind of the persona for them would be, sometimes they are product managers, sometimes they are marketing, but more often than not these days they're growth managers. And growth managers kind of marry product functions and marketing functions. So they look at the data, they understand what's happening, who are the users, they micro segment those users, and then they use that data to personalize the communication and micro target those segments of users. What we do to answer your question is we make it dead simple. So if you are a beginner, like let's say you have a brand new app, right, and you're just starting out, you could still use CleverTap, because we make it simple to realize these easy to use cases, right? As your user base grows, let's say you start with 10,000 users, right, monthly active users on your app. That's a different thing as opposed to, like, you have like a million people active on your app. Your concerns would be very different, right? In the first case, your concern might just be like, hey, is my app even functioning, right?
Are there any bugs?
Yeah, product market fit, like, do I have a segment, like, did my developer skip a, like a quality check and all that, right? In the 1 million, you're all about, okay, well, I've got a million people on my app, how do I make sure that, they don't disappear, don't forget about my app, right? How do I micro segment them? And then that, for the 10,000 MAU guy, like, maybe they can use a spreadsheet, like, to do their things, right? Ideally they should not, but you can still manage with that. For a million plus, they probably will never be able to use a spreadsheet, right? uh, and that's where systems like CleverTap come in, and we kind of help you with two or three important metrics, right? Increase the monthly retention rate for the customers, right? Increase the click through rate for your communication. So anything that you send, uh, the click through of that is measured, right? That means, was this communication meaningful to the user? Was it timely? Is it in the context, right?
Do you also drive the communication? Like, say, if there's an email campaign, does that email campaign get created on CleverTap so you can
Yes,
see the click through rate?
absolutely.
Okay.
All notifications, all email, SMS, WhatsApp, including pop-ups that happen within your app, they all get triggered from CleverTap and by CleverTap. So you don't have to go then integrate, like the same problem I was describing earlier, right? Like we were the engineers integrating these multiple systems, right? And the systems had no incentive to work with each other, right? So every day there'd be new crisis in your life, some system would break down, and you rush with your engineers to fix that system. With CleverTap, we built like this single platform, the single solid stable platform that where you can bring as much data as you have, use it to understand your behavior, analyze it, perform a variety of functions on top of the data, maybe do run machine learning algorithms on it, right? Run predictive stuff on it, like how many users will not come back tomorrow, and is there something I can do to bring them back to my app tomorrow, right? uh, how many people will not buy during my sale that I'm going to do right this weekend, and what will be the right amount of dollars, percentage of discount should I give to those people who are not going to come, so that they are tempted to come, right? So discover these things, and then of course close the loop by communicating to your users at extremely high speed, and massive level of personalization.
So if I was to like simplify CleverTap, maybe oversimplify, it would be like a Google Analytics plus Mailchimp on steroids.
Yeah, that would be a yes. That's yeah, of course, yeah. But like like if you put two scooters, if you connect two scooters with an axle, that does not give you a car. Uh, so yeah, we built, because there's a lot of synergy you get in one platform, right? If you have one platform, for example, your entire platform becomes real time. That means if you can see that there's a person who is at the airport right now who has launched your app, right? And has not, and has probably seen surge pricing, because you are a car company, right? A taxi company, and has decided not to book, but that person has been a loyal customer for the last, I don't know, 3 years, right? In this instance, he's willing to try out competition because you showed him surge pricing, right? Can you at that very instant take an action, right? uh, do an intervention to make sure that the person stays within your app? Like, can you say, hey, we notice you are a loyal customer, no surge pricing for you, right? Or if the app is already shut down, can you trigger a contact center workflow? Like someone calls from the contact center and saying that, uh, Mr. Dutt, we noticed that you are at the airport. Our apologies. It's a crazy day in the city right now. There's a lot of conferences. All our cabs are booked, but let me send something for you right away. And it's an upgrade of the usual card that you select, but it's on us. Wouldn't that experience be a very delightful experience, right? And that's what we enable. So we, this whole understanding where the user is, what is their context, what are they trying, where are they, in terms of location, and then marrying that with an action, right? So that you can actually change the drop off became a converted user or a happy user for life. This happens all the time in restaurants, right? If you look at physical restaurants, right? If you go there dressed nicely, uh, you and your girlfriend or you and your family, and someone wished you a happy birthday right there on the table, probably the chef will send you a cake. They'll send you a cake, right? Or they'll start playing their happy birthday music, right, for over the restaurant sound system, right? And that shows that they're listening. They're not listening to creep you out, but they're listening to personalize your experience as much as they can, right? Or if you ate the soup and you didn't like it too much, maybe if the chef is sensitive, he'll come out, and or she'll come out and ask you, like, hey, can I make this better for you, right? And I've been to such places, and trust me, and of course running burp, like, I read a lot of about these kind of experiences, and that was at some point of time, like, that some I think fundamental level that drove us to build CleverTap, saying that, hey, why can't we make this happen for all the digital brands? Physical brands do this all the time. Like there's a certain shop where I go buy my shirts, right? It's a certain showroom, right? I always go and buy there. Now the guy does not ask me my sizes. He does not ask me what colors do I want. He knows from the last 3 years, like, what kind of size I wear, what kind of shirts I want to buy, right? And what occasion do I wear my shirts, right? They're formal shirts, right? So uh, the person knows that nothing fancy, like, and all that, right? And no bright colors, no bold colors, and all that.
Yeah, like when I open Zomato, it automatically shows me, like it knows that I eat a lot of pizza, so I'll always get a recommendation.
That makes the two of us, yes. I And yeah, but wouldn't you, as opposed to imagine you had to wait through a bunch of crap and just, like, and then they showed you your pizza, right? Uh, these are intelligent things, right? These are intelligent, very small, very but very intelligent things that a user will appreciate, right? And say, and that might be the reason you go back to Zomato, because you think they understand what you want or what you like. Even the newer restaurants that they recommend you, that comes from machine learning, and a lot of heuristics which say that, what, he's eaten at these kind of places, he's given a 5-star rating or has probably gone back again, so maybe the person will like this new restaurant also, which has similar characteristics.
So let me take a couple of minutes on the CleverTap journey. I think all our listeners understand the product and its value add well. How did you actually build the company? Like, how did you get the first customer? How did you fund the company? Tell me about that journey.
Interesting journey we had. So we quit our jobs at Network 18. We started up, and while we were busy ideating on, what's the best approach and to build it and all that, right? Like, maybe not to build the company, but to build the product. um, I mean, we were not really bothered about the company aspects of the thing, right? It was more of uh, what database do we use and what will be the front end and things like that, right? Like, as three engineers, you can imagine what we cared about were these geeky things, right? Uh, so one day I, get a call of the founder of Book My Show, who's a dear friend, and he says, "Hey, Anand, I'm thinking of an idea, and I want to ideate it with you. That we send newsletters to all the users at the same time every week, right? And it goes to the same, it has the same 5 movies that are playing in the theaters, right? Uh, Irrespective of whether you watch movies once a week, like every week, every Friday, or whether you do it every, only the award-winning movies or whatever, like, we send the same thing. So I want to change that. Like, I said, okay, Ashish, let me drive down, let me take a hop into a auto rickshaw, come to your office, and describe you something that I'm working on. And that was that, like, so we had a wonderful whiteboarding session, and literally within in less than an hour, he said, what, I'm going to trust you with this system. I will stop the project that we are going to start on working on, and you build it for me, like, and I said, yeah, well, I am, this is the new company that I've started, and I'm going to, this is the product that we're working on, so give me some time. He says, time I don't have any, but I give you 3 weeks to go put this up in production on my website. um, so that was a good, like, that was a good deadline, because then we got super busy 3 weeks, the three of us, and we came up with the first version of CleverTap, and we put it up on.
Book My Show is a pretty great customer to launch with because they check all the boxes in terms of large amount of data, very diverse type of customer needs. So, I mean, they would really be a good showcase on what all you could do.
That's correct, and they were unlike others, right? They were, I mean, that they are e-commerce, so to say, but they don't have a shopping cart, they don't have like checkout, and the checkout step, if you think about this, is like a 12-step checkout process, right? Uh, so it was great actually to launch with them, and they were very, I mean, they have spiky traffic also, right? Like the example I gave earlier, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as you can imagine, like there are people who go watch movies, right? But there's not too much happening, right? Uh, the family crowd, like this.
Movie tastes are so varied, like you have languages, you have
Correct.
the genre. And so, I mean, that way it's like a extremely interesting client where you could actually show to other potential customers on the power of the idea.
Yep, and we never let go of that opportunity that we got, right? So we started building on that, and through Ashish, we got introduced to Axel. Uh, and we landed our first round of funding, seed capital from Axel, um, and that was $1.6 million. So we started out in 2013. In 2014, we got our seed round of capital, uh, and the subsequent year we raised our Series A, where we got Sequoia to come in, and Sequoia, led the round with the $8 million check. And so, with two highly
So after
respected.
Book My Show, like, what about the customer side?
Yeah, so we did not actually, even to Book My Show, we did not sell the platform. We said, let's co-create. I don't want to sell you half a product. uh, the product is not complete, and we will come and have the pricing discussion the day it is complete. But we are extremely driven to build something very, very quickly, right? So we will build very, very fast, and you will literally see a new update in the product, like something uh, more than yesterday, every day, in the product, right? So just trust us. And I think they took a bet on us, we took a bet on them, to not send a laundry list of requirements, etc., to us, right? um, so that turned out to be, I would say, very good. And there were a few other, like, friendly, I would say, installations, but we never kind of charged money to anyone, right? We said, you know what, we just need some traffic, real world traffic, to come hit our servers, so that we know which, whether the servers can scale, whether we can, whatever technology we were building, will it work with this wide variety of data, and so on and so forth. um, the core technology of CleverTap is data processing and storage technology we've invented. um, so yeah, and that is, so we did not know how it would hold up to traffic, right? To invent is to one thing, and to, like, for it to work in the real world is the other. uh, so yeah, so it took us the first 30 months of CleverTap, starting from 2013, was building this technology out. It's an extremely complex technology that lets you put everything together in one place, lets you, like, process literally unlimited amounts of data in real time, and show you, all sorts of insights, and lets you send communication across a very wide variety of channels, or communication formats, to hundreds of millions of users, literally in a matter of a few seconds. um, so that is what we built, like the engine of a Ferrari, if you will, right? If you want to use an example, like, that's what we built. It's extremely complex engineering, but we did it, and until it was complete, we did not want to go sell to anyone. So we and you know so it was good that we raised a couple of rounds, because you need money to survive, right? You need to pay salaries of engineers and all that. And once we had a version that we liked, like the minimum viable product, as we call it, in from 2016 onwards, we started selling the product. uh, and I would say we had a great run since then. I mean, we started selling in India. Uh, so Book My Show and a few others, kind of, that the selling to them, like, gave us confidence that, India can be a big market. And prior to that, the other product or enterprise companies were not selling in India. They were building in India, they're not selling in India, or selling to India rather, right? Um, and there are several examples. I won't name names, but there are several of those. And we kind of bucked that trend. We changed it. We said, you know what, these companies also buy some product, and we, that thesis panned out nicely. Uh,
Who are some of the companies that use CleverTrap? Are you at liberty to share names?
I can share a few names. Yeah, so Zomato is one of them. We have Dream 11. We have India's largest telecom operator. Uh, we have uh, we have a very, very wide variety. We have, pretty much everyone in the fintech sector is a client of ours. We have pretty much everyone in the food tech sector is a client of ours. We have big market share in, esports, uh, like, Mobile Premier League is a client of ours. Times Internet, and we have, so these are Indian customers I'm talking about, right? Globally, we have Daimler Group, we have Yeah, we have Pfizer in the US. We have Treble, YouNow. Uh, we have NBC Broadcasting, which is a large broadcaster based out of the Middle East. We have Gojek in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. Carousel. Uh, so we have a very wide variety of customers across the globe. We work with a few banks in Latin America, work with a lot of startups, food delivery, fintech, etc. in Latin America also. So customers across 100 plus countries. Uh, but the journey has been nice, right? Because for the first 30 months we did not charge anyone, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get to where we are. 7 years later, you have like customers in 100 countries, and some extremely big customers that we are very proud of.
So that was the incredible journey of Anand Jain. And if you want to learn more about CleverTap and how it helps businesses to grow through better data and customer targeting, then check out their product at clevertap.com.
If you like the Founder Thesis podcast, then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in, for a complete list of all our shows.